So, you're writing a story, maybe a fantasy story that has magical elements, or maybe a science fiction story that has some elements that might be technological in origin, but certainly constitute powers given to characters that transcend ordinary abilities. If you're writing a story and characters have different levels of sort of abilities to interact with the world, what you might call superpowers or magic, I wanted to break down into three categories ways that you could have magic or powers, two of which are pretty good writing when they pop up, and one of them is an easy pitfall to fall into. The first category would be powers or magic that are both revealed and explained. This would be something like Harry Potter. So in Harry Potter, because we're following along with the protagonists who are learning magic, the magic is made very explicit to us, the reader, and it's sort of explained, at least as much as in-universe makes sense. The characters are developing these skills and learning new spells and learning new abilities, and so it has this sort of internal cohesiveness, and it doesn't break its own rules of the world, and that is a very fun way of having powers in or magic in a world. The second way would be to have powers or magic that are revealed but unexplained. And this is the less fun way of writing, or reading rather. It's the easy pitfall to fall into, and oftentimes is used as an ex machina that just resolves some conflict by a character all of a sudden having the ability to cast lightning bolts down from the sky, or all of a sudden they, gain a power that we hadn't seen earlier. And that sort of comes off as lazy writing. That comes off oftentimes as kind of clunky. And the third, which I think is the most subtle and most fun, is powers and magic that are both unrevealed and unexplained, or unrevealed and somewhat explained. And probably the best example of this would be the Lord of the Rings. So, characters in the Lord of the Rings that have powers, oftentimes modern readers or viewers of Lord of the Rings might look at a wizard like Gandalf and be like, well, he's just a trickster, or his magic isn't as sort of big and in your face as some of the magic of or powers of other fictions, other stories. And that isn't necessarily the case. It's just more so the fact that the powers and magic that are used in The Lord of the Rings aren't really made that explicit to the reader or the viewer as they go through the stories. So characters like Gandalf and Sauron and they're not quite as main characters, but also Elrond have these powers that are powers of influence. In the books, spoilers for the 100-year-old books if you haven't read it, Gandalf and Sauron can command people with their voice. They can compel them to do things. When they go and confront Sauron in his tower, he starts speaking in a way that comes off as just entrances the whole party except Gandalf, and they all want to do his bidding. And Gandalf later speaks in a way that compels Saruman to act. He can't resist it. He's controlling him. Characters throughout that story are influenced by this sort of deep and powerful magic. Gandalf has these powers of like encouragement, right? Characters that are traveling along with Gandalf have their mind and spirit influenced by his presence and his magic to feel like they can accomplish a mission, or to have hope that there is some ability that they can continue on. When he departs from the parties, they lose that. It's very clear when you read the book with that framework that he is influencing characters around him. If he were to be explicit and say, I will now put this mind control spell on you and make you more positive, or my magic is magic of encouragement, or gives the bravery and courage for people to act like heroes. That might spoil it a little bit. You might not want to go around telling everyone that, especially if you're not, all powerful. You might want to keep a couple of your tricks up your sleeve, as it were. And that type of powers or magic in a story can go kind of undiscovered by readers or viewers for sure. And you don't really understand. I mean, I think it's more clear and more direct in those stories that Sauron has the power to corrupt people and to cause them to act according to his will, because that's more directly related to the plot than Nazgul with the Nine Rings and all of those um, characters that are very directly influenced to do Sauron's bidding. Well, other characters are influenced to do the bidding of others as well, and we don't really come face to face with that until the very end of the story, where it's sort of revealed, and then on a subsequent read through you can see, oh, this magic was here all along. And that's a very fun way to have a power or magic in a story. So I would encourage you, if you're writing stories, whether those be books or shows or video games or short stories or whatever you're writing, if your stories have some type of magic or technological power or ability that's beyond normal, that you consider very carefully if that will have a full explanation that makes sense in world and doesn't contradict other things, if it will be used as an ex machina to solve some plot conflict at the right moment, or if there will be nuance, or rather, I shouldn't say nuance, or if there will be some concealment of the true scope of these powers, and that as the readers or viewers, we are only able to piece together little bits of this. I'll give you a pair of examples in movies that took place 10 minutes apart from each other as to how much of a different character this can make with a story. And that would be the movies Star Wars A New Hope and Star Wars Rogue One. At the very end of Star Wars Rogue One, the characters that we're following along with don't really know or understand what the Force is and what Jedi and Sith are capable of. And they come across Vader at the end of the movie. And it is terrifying, boogeyman under the bed type monster who is just unstoppable, and that sets a very different tone. That character is, and the presentation of that character in the context, who has powers that are, we understand there is explanation, but they're sort of unrevealed to the characters. I mean, they're shooting at a guy who can stop blaster bolts. They're trying to fight against a guy they have no chance against. So there's this sort of hidden depth to the powers, which makes it terrifying and puts it in stark contrast of different power levels that character is to our protagonist, contrasted to Star Wars A New Hope, who follows characters that are learning and growing and developing those powers, and then we as audience members are sort of in on it, and we are along for the ride. So those powers kind of make more sense and are closer to us, and it's a more known commodity, and it's fun. And also, we don't really get to see that big power separation between a Luke Skywalker character and a regular person. Both are great. Both are good writing. If it were only revealed at the last minute to resolve some plot that Luke could lift things with his mind, then that might be the less fun way to go. Something to think about. One of the little facets of story creation and fiction writing, especially in our little genres of science fiction and fantasy, that we should consider very carefully, because in these genres that have these magic and powers, the application of them can either make that story just knock it out of the park, transcendental, just fantastic storytelling, or very easily the application of powers and magic can make that story just kind of fall flat and seem like uninspired, boring writing. So be careful with it. Think it through well before you put it on the page, and have fun with it. If you have thoughts on this, put it down in the comments and share it, because the more we carry these conversations forward, the better writers we'll all be. Thank you.